fellas. It's all about Big Blue. Here to talk a little bit more about what the moving forward the Giants front office is going to look like. I mean, as Mazo mentioned in the breaking news report, and as I'm sure you all know, Brian Dable is out. Mike Kafka is in. He is the interim head coach. Surprisingly, I guess, we still have Joe Schoen as our general manager, and as you know, that's not something I'm a fan of. But it is what it is, so we're going to just move forward, at least for the time being. You know, a lot of people are pondering on whether or not his job is, actually safe or if it's just safe for now, but whatever. We'll address that again later. For right now, some things that I'd like to see Mike Kafka do as he seeks to hold on to this job permanently, or at the very least, establish himself as a viable candidate for the other 31 teams. There are some moves that I think he just absolutely needs to make. One of those moves is he just already announced, or at least I've read that it was announced. I'm not sure. I haven't actually heard him say it, but that Jameis Winston will start instead of Russell Wilson in the likely event that Jackson Dart doesn't get to play this week because of the concussion protocol, which I think is the right move. I think we hold Dart out at least this week, maybe even next week as well. Let's protect that young man. He is our future. And Brian Dable was, running him into the ground unnecessarily in games that we were losing anyway. And even had we won, weren't worth that. So I hope Kafka learns from that and doesn't have Dart rushed back into play. And then even when he is back into play, let's not have him run so often and make sure he slides. Okay, so what should Kafka do? I think immediately there's some people need to be brought up from the practice squad. I'm sure you all know who the first name I'm going to mention is Dante Turbo-Miller. The man just needs to be activated, period, full stop. Way too electric, way too fast to not even be on the active roster on a team that, quite frankly, doesn't have, weapons like that. He brings a very unique skill set that we need to get on the field 5 or 6 snaps a game and get the ball in his hands 2 or 3 times a game. There's no other way around that. I think little Jordan Humphrey needs to be activated. I mean, we just sign him to the 53. I think Elijah Chapman needs to be brought up. He's a interior defensive lineman and fullback, both of which we could get better at. And we finally added Ben Sauls to the practice squad, which I've been trying to get Ben Sauls on this team since before the draft last year. We finally got him in the practice squad. Let's elevate him and actually let him be our kicker. I don't need to see what Young Wei Koo can do. Not that he had a bad game last week. I mean, he did what he was asked to do, but I'm pretty sure that he is not the guy that was a Pro Bowler, 4 or 5 years ago. That guy isn't here anymore, much like Bobby Okereke isn't that guy anymore. I digress. So yes, let's activate Ben Sauls, please. Ben Sauls, Turbo-Miller, Elijah Chapman, Little Jordan Humphrey, those 4 need to be active and, getting onto the field for the rest of the season. Let's see what they can do. We need to cut Graham Gano, just cut him outright. I'm pretty sure we save over $1 million in cap space if we do that. I know there was some dead cap, small amount of dead cap. I think it was $2.5 million dead cap that was going to hit. And now that it's after June 1st, it would be split over this year and next year. So $1.25 million this year and again next year. But his salary was $5 million. So he was going to save us money, although it's more than halfway through the season now. So we've paid him, a fair amount of that money already. Long story short, cut Gano, even if it means we save $1 million. Just move on. I've been reading a lot of people posting online about the possibility of the Giants making a trade for a coach, which is a thing. You can do that. But they've been talking about giving up a first-round pick for either Mike Tomlin or John Harbaugh. I don't give up a first-round pick for any coach. I'm just not doing it. Not on a team like this. If we were a competitive playoff-bound team and for some reason our coach was either retiring or, something happened and he couldn't move forward with us anymore, and we needed someone to kind of continue this really, really good trajectory we were on, maybe you think about that. If your roster is so good that you can afford to give that up. But right now, we are not a good enough roster to be giving away draft picks, especially probably top 3 to 5, maybe even top overall draft pick. Are you kidding me? No, we need to use that either to draft someone outstanding or, in my opinion, much better yet, to trade down 2 or 3 times and add 5 or 6 really good picks in the next 2 years, this year and next year's drafts, so that whoever the coach is has a lot more to work with. Let me say that again. What would I rather have? Mike Tomlin or John Harbaugh and no first round pick? Or some other fairly good candidate, plus the half a dozen picks that first overall pick could turn into, with which that new coach can continue to build this roster? That's no brainer to me. That's not even close. Okay, so that's what I think we shouldn't do, is trade a first or even a second round pick for a coach. If it's a 4th or a 5th, that's a conversation I'm willing to have. Next thing I think he needs to do is we need to get Marcus Bowe onto the field. And I think we need to get him onto the field at guard. I mean, he played some guard in college. I'm not at practice every day, so I don't know. I'm not at practice any day, so I don't know if he's taking any snaps at guard. But my guess is somewhere between, June and now, he's had some snaps at guard. And if he hasn't, then that's another problem with Dable and Shane. Why hasn't he? Clearly, our interior offensive line is not as good as our tackles. Clearly, Marcus Bowe has played very solidly at tackle. That would make me think, hey, maybe I need to get this man a look at guard. What if one of the guards gets injured? I mean, I'm not convinced that Aaron Stinney is going to be a better replacement for Greg Van Roten than Marcus Bowe would be. In fact, I don't want him to be. I want Marcus Bowe to be able to be that guy. So let's get him some snaps. Again, we're 2-8. We're not going to the playoffs. The rest of this year is about looking ahead to the future to see what we do have. Which pieces do we keep? Which pieces do we move on from? Which pieces are worthy of development? So I think Bowe needs to get some snaps at guard. I think Chris Manhertz needs to get more snaps at tight end. I mean, I realize that he's not under contract for next year either, but he's the best blocking tight end we have by a long shot. And our run game is, mid. So we need more blocking to make the run game better. And he's by far our best blocking tight end. In fact, Theo Johnson is our worst blocking tight end, at least of the 3 that typically get snaps. So I think it should be Bellinger and Manhertz on obvious running downs as the tight ends and let Theo come off the field. He's just not that good a blocker in the run game. I think we should throw the ball more to Daniel Bellinger. I know he had that almost touchdown pass last game that, 10 years ago would have been considered a touchdown catch. In today's NFL, you have to kind of survive the ground, which I'm not even sure he didn't do, but whatever. It didn't get called a touchdown, and we didn't challenge it, which I don't understand why we didn't challenge it, but we didn't. But Bellinger has great hands, gets open fairly often short. I mean, he's not going to run, a post corner for 40 yards, but he can turn 1st and 10 into 2nd and 4 a lot. He can turn 3rd and 5 into a first down fairly often. Like, he's good within the first 10 to 15 yards at finding the soft spot in the zone, getting open, and catching the ball. I mean, that's what we need a tight end to do, and he's very, very good at it, and we just way, way, way underutilize him. So those are the moves that I think that new coach, interim head coach Mike Kafka needs to do immediately. I also would like to talk about next year a little bit more, but I'm going to save that for the next episode with Mezo. I did a mock draft Monday. It's already Wednesday. So much has been going on that it kind of got lost in the sauce. So maybe me and Mezo and I will talk about that tonight together. But in any event, that's what I think. And of course, as always, I want to know what you think. So again, Clay from Bklyn, asking you to grab that like button, to share, comment, subscribe, all those good things. Clay from Bklyn, Football with the Fellas, all about Big Blue. And I'm out.
Big shout out to El Marquis Productions, the talent behind the music and production here at Football with the Fellas. It's all about Big Blue. Their beats bring energy and excitement to every episode. El Marquis' skills in mixing, mastering, and creating top quality sound make the podcast come alive each week. For your own projects, check out elmarquisproductions.com and take your sound to the next level.